Have you ever felt that you didn't land here by accident, that something unseen arranged this exact moment for you to hear words you were always meant to hear? That tug inside is not random. It is a signal from the field. The observer effect has been shaping your reality every single day, collapsing endless possibilities into the same repeating scene you keep witnessing. Every thought you fixate on, every fear you revisit, every doubt you feed, it all becomes a measurement. And measurement collapses the wave into one outcome, the one you already expect. This is why life can feel like déjà vu, different faces. Same story, but what if the role of the observer is not your destiny, but a trap? You are standing at the threshold of a truth most never discover. The observer effect only controls you as long as you identify as the observer. The moment you realize you are not the role but the awareness behind it, the loop begins to lose its grip. This is the hidden key. Attention may shape outcomes, but identity shifts collapse entire timelines. In the next moments, you will see why your focus has kept you trapped, and how a single realization can free you instantly. Stay with this, because once you see what has always been hidden in plain sight, the observer effect no longer owns your reality. The loop ends where awareness begins. Have you noticed how every time you give something your full attention, it begins to dominate your reality? This is not just psychology, it mirrors the quantum principle of measurement. In quantum physics, a particle exists as a cloud of possibilities until it is observed. The act of observation collapses the wave into a single position, a single fact. Your attention does the same. Each time you dwell on a thought, whether it is fear or desire, you are performing a measurement on the field of infinite outcomes. And the universe, faithful to the observer effect, gives you more evidence of what you have measured. This is why patterns repeat. You think you are analyzing, but you are actually collapsing. You think you are just noticing, but noticing is measurement. And measurement is creation. Life seems to echo back your most familiar thoughts because you have measured them into reality again and again. The job that always feels just out of reach. The relationship dynamic that always circles back, the financial ceiling that never seems to break. These are collapsed waves, not destiny. The hidden danger is that most people measure unconsciously. Their attention is hijacked by fear, doubt, and media noise. Without realizing it, they collapse reality into the very outcome they least want. But this also holds the seed of liberation. If attention collapses, then shifting attention reshapes. You are not trapped by the evidence, you are shaping it in every moment. And once you see this, the observer effect is no longer. Some people hesitate when they hear the term observer effect. They say, that's quantum physics, not personal growth. And they are right on the surface. In physics, the observer effect describes how the act of measurement alters the behavior of particles. But when we use it as a metaphor for consciousness, we are not pretending that your thoughts are literally electron microscopes. Think about it this way. A physicist measures a particle and the wave collapses into one precise location. You measure your reality with your focus, and your possibilities collapse into one repeating scene. Both follow the same principle. The unseen field is reduced to the seen. Physics proves it in equations. Your daily life proves it in patterns. You don't need to understand quantum math to feel the truth of this metaphor. You are already living. This is why language matters. When you keep saying, I always struggle, you are performing a measurement through words. When you repeatedly tell yourself, I never get ahead, the field takes that as an observation, a collapse. Physics gives us the metaphor. Consciousness makes it practical. You don't need a lab to run the experiment. Your life is the experiment. And every word, thought, and focus is a measurement device. Here is the piece most people miss. It is not the specific thought that shapes reality, but the state from which that thought arises. You can repeat affirmations 1,000 times, but if your state is fear, doubt, or lack, then every word is colored by that frequency. The field responds to coherence, not just words. Your inner state is the lens. It determines which possibilities collapse into. Consider two people saying the same sentence, I am worthy. One says it from a desperate place, hoping to fix what feels broken. The other says it from coherence, feeling aligned, calm, and open. Same words, different state, radically different results. The universe does not take instruction from language alone. It reads the frequency that language rides on. This is why forced positive thinking so often fails. It is not the script. Once you understand this, the trap of the observer effect begins to weaken. You realize that you are not doomed by past thoughts, because states can shift instantly. Change the state, and the measurements change with it. Fear collapses one timeline, while gratitude collapses another. Doubt narrows the field, while coherence opens it wide. This is the primacy of state. Your inner frequency decides which version of reality. Every loop begins with a single seed belief. A belief is not just a thought, it is a lens. It quietly tells your nervous system what to look for, what to highlight, and what to ignore. Once the lens is set, attention. You don't notice reality as it is. You notice reality as your belief allows. And once attention narrows in, emotion amplifies the signal. You feel fear when you see confirmation of your doubt, or excitement when you glimpse proof of your hope. The loop is already spinning. From belief to attention to emotion, the cycle feeds itself. The more fear you feel, the more you notice fearful evidence. The more you notice, the stronger the belief becomes. It is a feedback loop, a closed circuit of perception. Soon, you are not living in objective reality. You are living inside your own echo chamber, a hologram coded by your belief. This is the observer loop, the unconscious repetition of measurement that collapses the same timeline again. The danger is subtle. You think you are collecting evidence, but you are really reinforcing the script. You believe it, you see it, you feel it, you believe more deeply. The loop does not need effort to survive. It runs automatically, feeding on your focus. But here lies the hidden crack. If attention can be redirected, the cycle can be interrupted. The lens is not permanent. And once you realize this, the loop is no longer destiny. It is just a program you can rewrite. Your brain is not a passive camera. It is a selective filter. At the center of this filter sits the reticular activating system, or RAS. Its job is to decide which information reaches your awareness and which remains invisible. Out of billions of signals bombarding you every second, only a handful make it through. And how does the RAS choose? By following. If you believe the world is unsafe, your RAS highlights danger cue sirens, frowns, bad news. If you believe opportunities are scarce, you overlook openings even when they are right in front of you. This is not chance. It is confirmation bias at work. The mind scans reality for matches to its inner script, then proudly declares, "See, I was right all along." But you weren't right. You were selective. You saw only what aligned with the loop you were already running. This is why two people can stand in the same place, facing the same world, and live two completely different realities. One notices threats. The other notices possibilities. Each believes their perception is objective truth, yet both are filtering through the lens of their RAS and their beliefs. The loop sustains itself not because the world is fixed, but because your brain is programmed to keep proving itself. How do you know if you are caught inside the observer loop? The clues are subtle, but once you recognize them, they become undeniable. One tell is repetition. You keep facing the same kind of setback no matter where you go. The details change, but the pattern stays the same. Another tell is emotional. Déjà vu, the familiar heaviness that returns in different situations, as if life keeps pressing the same bruise. When the feeling is older than the moment, you are likely inside a loop. Another sign is the "I knew it" reaction. Something goes wrong, and instead of surprise, you feel confirmation. Of course this happened. This is how it always goes for me. That sense of grim predictability is not fate. It is the loop congratulating itself for staying intact. The script repeats. and your nervous system mistakes it for truth. The most powerful tell, though, is resistance to new evidence. Someone offers you kindness, but you dismiss it as temporary. An opportunity opens, but you explain it away. Your loop prefers the comfort of being right over the risk of being free. Seeing this is uncomfortable, but it is also liberating, because once you can spot the loop, you have stepped outside of it. Awareness creates space, and in that space, the cycle weakens. Recognition is the first crack in the wall. Imagine your body as an orchestra. When stress takes over, each instrument plays off-key. The breath is shallow, the heart races, the mind loops, noise rise, and your awareness cannot distinguish signal from chaos. But when coherence emerges, the instruments align, breath slows, the heart steadies, and brain waves begin to synchronize. The orchestra shifts from noise to harmony, and your perception. Coherence is not just a spiritual idea, it has a physiology. When your breathing rhythm matches the natural rhythm of your heart, something remarkable happens. Heart rate variability stabilizes, sending signals of safety to your nervous system. Stress, hormones drop, clarity rises. In this state, the reticular activating system no longer hunts for danger. It opens to possibility. Coherence literally changes what you are able to notice. This is why practices like slow breathing, grounding, or heart-focused meditation are so powerful. In less than 90 seconds, your biology can switch tracks from survival mode to creation mode. The observer loop feeds on incoherence, on scattered signals. But when you bring the system into alignment, the loop begins to weaken. You can feel it. Thoughts soften, emotion loosen, awareness expands. Coherence doesn't fight the loop. It dissolves the. When the noise lowers and coherence rises, your perception begins to reorganize. It is like tuning an old radio at first. The static drowns the music, but as the dial finds the right frequency, clarity emerges. In the same way, coherence shifts the dial of your awareness. What once felt random or overwhelming begins to reveal hidden patterns, synchronicities, and openings that were always there but unseen. At higher signal, the familiar loop loses its authority. The same situation that once triggered fear suddenly looks different. You notice options where before you saw only walls. You sense connections that once felt invisible. This is not wishful thinking, it is perception freed from static. The brain, when coherent, is no longer obsessed with protecting the past. It is able to register the present, and in the present, new timelines exist. This shift explains why a coherent state feels like expansion. Space seems wider, time seems slower, colors feel richer. Awareness stretches beyond the problem and starts noticing the field around it. In this expanded perception, the loop's repetition feels weaker, almost transparent. You realize the trap was never the world, it was the static in your own system. Coherence does not create opportunities out of nothing. It reveals the opportunities that noise had. Coherence is not only a practice in the moment, it is also a hygiene you can build into daily life. Just as you brush your teeth to prevent decay, you can cleanse your field to prevent static from accumulating. Every conversation, every headline, every emotional residue you carry adds to the signal or the noise. Without hygiene, the static piles up and the loop feeds on that clutter. Field hygiene begins with boundaries. Notice what you allow into your awareness: music, media, people. Do they amplify coherence or scatter it? A few minutes of mindful curation each day can shift your entire baseline. Another practice is emotional clearing before sleep. Pause and release the leftover charge of the day. Breath, journaling, or simple acknowledgement resets your field to neutral. Otherwise, yesterday's noise becomes tomorrow's loop. Environment matters too. Spaces hold energy. A cluttered room reflects a cluttered signal. A clean, Intentional space supports coherence. This is not superstition, it is resonance. Your nervous system entrains to the signals around it. By designing an environment that mirrors clarity, you make coherence easier to access. Think of hygiene not as control, but as alignment. You are not forcing the field, you are clearing it so that its natural harmony can emerge. Static is not destiny, it is neglect. And the moment you treat coherence as daily hygiene, you stop waiting for peace to arrive and start living in it. The loop loses ground when the field is kept clear. Most people assume the observer is who they are. You hear your thoughts, notice your breath, evaluate outcomes. Naturally, you conclude, I am the one watching. Yet that conclusion hides the trap. The observer is a role within consciousness, not the essence of consciousness itself. It is a function like a dashboard that reports speed and fuel. Helpful, yes, ultimate identity. The observer comments, compares, categorizes, and judges. It tries to keep you safe by predicting the next scene. It believes control equals security, so it measures relentlessly. Am I doing well? Is this working? What does this mean about me? Each measurement collapses options into familiar results. And the loop tightens. The actor keeps performing because you mistake the actor for yourself. Notice the difference. Awareness is the open space in which the observer appears. Awareness is silent, spacious, present. The observer is busy, verbal, evaluative. Awareness can watch the observer doubt, strategize, and label without becoming any of it. In those moments, you glimpse your true position behind the watcher. A simple experiment reveals the split. Ask, what is the next thought, and wait. In the gap before a thought arrives, you are. That gap is awareness without the role. From there, you can see the observer as a useful instrument instead of a sovereign king. Instruments serve, they do not rule. This recognition matters because identification fuels the loop. When you identify as the observer, you must keep measuring, and reality keeps repeating. When you identify as awareness, the measuring quiets, and timelines loosen. That shift opens the door to the 0 point. From there, Surena feels naturel, and control fades like fog in morning light over the valley. What happens when you stop identifying as the observer and fall back into pure awareness? A radical shift, the role dissolves. The chatter, the judgment, the endless measurement lose their grip. You arrive at what mystics and quantum thinkers alike call the 0 point, a space of silent, open presence where nothing is forced into collapse. In this state, you are not demanding proof, not chasing outcomes, not rehearsing the past. You are simply here. The 0 point is not emptiness in the bleak sense. It is spaciousness. From here, timelines are fluid because awareness is not clinging to any one option. You are not trying to force the wave into a particle. You are allowing the wave to remain open. And in that allowance, infinite outcomes. Stay alive. This surrender is not weakness, but a deeper coherence. It is a trust that the field itself knows how to organize reality without the obsessive measuring of the observer. Paradoxically, the more you try to control through observation, the tighter the loop becomes. But when you step into 0 point, the loop starves. It has no observer to feed on, no constant measuring to sustain it. You experience a kind of freedom that feels both disorienting and exhilarating. Freedom from the need to keep proving yourself right. Freedom from the pressure to monitor every detail. Awareness at 0 point is like the still center of a spinning wheel. Identity is the anchor of the loop. As long as you believe I am the observer, you remain bound to endless measuring. But the breakthrough comes when you realize identity is fluid. You are not locked into the mask of the observer. You can shift into something deeper, the field itself. This shift is not about adding new thought, but about inhabiting a new position of being. When you stop standing as the one who measures and start embodying the field that contains all measurement, reality begins to reorganize. Timelines that depended on the observer collapse because their anchor is gone. The field does not need to measure, it simply holds. It is infinite, coherent, unpressured. From that vantage, outcomes flow naturally without manipulation. This is the hidden quantum secret. Freedom is not in controlling every outcome, but in releasing the identity that demands control. When you shift identity into the field, a subtle but irreversible change occurs. You no longer think of yourself as a small point trying to direct reality. You experience yourself as the vast container within which reality moves. Problems feel lighter, because they are not yours to fix. They are waves in the field, free to rise and dissolve. Identity is not a prison, it is a choice. And once you discover that choice, you begin to step into a life unbound by repetition. This is the essence of quantum shift. The moment identity relocates, what remains when the observer role dissolves not emptiness, but freedom. Life does not vanish, it expands. The loop that once repeated with mechanical precision begins to soften because its engine, constant measurement, has been unplugged. Suddenly, synchronicities appear where repetition used to dominate. What once felt like déjà vu now feels like serendipity. When you stop being the observer, you discover that reality flows with less resistance. Relationships shift, not because you control them, but because you no longer project the same script. Opportunities emerge, not because you chase them, but because you are open enough to notice. Even challenges lose their sharpness. They are waves in motion, not verdicts against you. This is life after the observer, a field alive, fluid. Many fear that releasing the observer means losing agency. The opposite is true. Agency grows because you are no longer trapped in the cycle of reaction. Empowerment is effortless. When you are awareness itself, you are not straining to change thoughts. You are standing as the space in which thoughts come and go. And in that space, new timelines can. The shock of realizing I am not the observer becomes the liberation point. Once you see it, you cannot unsee. The loop cannot recapture you because the identity that kept it alive has dissolved. What follows is not control but flow, not repetition but expansion. This is the irreversible shift life, reorganizing itself around awareness, not the observer. Every cycle has a weakness. It needs continuity. The observer loop feeds on momentum, on your unbroken participation. The first step of empowerment, then, is interruption. To reset the field, you must cut the current running through the old circuit, and the fastest way to do this is not through thought, but through the body. A simple 90-second practice can break the loop's grip. Begin with the breath. Inhale slowly to a count of 4. Hold for 4. Exhale for 6. This rhythm signals safety to the nervous system and begins to dissolve the voltage of the loop. Next, bring awareness into the body. Feel your feet on the ground, your hands on your lap, your spine upright. Grounding reorients you to the present, pulling you out of recycled memories and imagined. This is not mere relaxation, it is interruption at the quantum level. The breath, the body, and the vision act as breakers in the circuit. In less than 2 minutes, coherence begins to rise, and the observer's momentum loses fuel. You have created a gap, and in that gap, the loop cannot run. Interruption is not the whole protocol, but it is the entry point. Without it, the field cannot reset. With it, you regain the power to choose what unfolds. Interruption opens the gap, but what fills it decides the trajectory. If you stop the loop without installing coherence, the old circuit will simply restart. The second step of the field reset protocol is to raise coherence deliberately fast. Think of it as tuning the system before the noise returns. The quickest entry is the heart. Bring your attention to the center of your chest. Breathe slowly, and imagine each inhale and exhale flowing through the heart itself. Within a minute, your nervous system begins to entrain to this rhythm. Heart rate variability stabilizes. Stress hormones drop, and a calm clarity spreads. This is coherence, not just calmness, but alignment of breath, heart. Next, amplify with gratitude. Not a forced list, but a single authentic feeling. Recall a person, a moment, or even the breath itself, and allow a gentle sense of appreciation to arise. Gratitude is coherence's accelerant. It shifts the signal from survival into creation almost instantly. Finally, embody coherence with posture. Lift your spine, relax your shoulders, soften your face. The body broadcasts signals back to the brain. When the body aligns, the mind follows. In less than 2 minutes, the loop's static is replaced with a harmonic. This step is crucial. Without coherence, you only pause the loop. With coherence, you prime the field for a new collapse. What emerges next will not be recycled history, but a timeline that matches the state you now embody. Once coherence rises, the final step is encoding, imprinting the new state into the field, so it stabilizes. Without encoding, coherence remains temporary, like a song fading when the music stops. Encoding makes the state self-sustaining, a frequency that reality. Begin with language. Speak from the state you want, not the one you fear. Instead of saying, "I don't want to be stuck," declare, "I move freely into new timelines." Words are not magic by themselves, but when carried by coherence, they act like tuning forks, sending precise vibrations into the field. Next, anchor with imagery. Picture yourself already inside the state, calm, empowered, open. Don't force details of outcomes. Focus on the texture of being. The brain does not distinguish between lived and vividly imagined states. When you embody the image with emotion, the field records it as measurement. Finally, act small but aligned. Choose one micro-action that matches the state, sending a message with clarity instead of hesitation, walking with presence instead of rush, pausing before reacting. These acts are like coding lines written into the field. The more you stack them, encoding is not about proving the state to others. It is about proving it to your nervous system. Each word, image, and act signals, "This is real." And as the signal strengthens, the field reorganizes. The loop cannot override a state that has been encoded into both biology and awareness. This is how coherence becomes creation. Identity is not built in a single leap. It is layered through choices. Each choice you make, however small, is like a brick placed in the structure of who you are becoming. This is the essence of choice, stacking, aligning micro-decisions with the state you wish to embody. Over 72 hours, these stacked choices create a density strong enough for the nervous system to recognize as identity. Think of it this way. If coherence is the frequency, choice stacking is the pattern that locks it in. One act of presence may feel temporary, but 10 small acts of presence over 3 days begin to feel like a lifestyle. Your system learns, "This is who I am now." It does not need grand gestures. It needs, for example, imagine you want to embody clarity. In the next 72 hours, you might send a message with directness instead of hedging, drink water instead of numbing with distraction, walk slowly instead of rushing. Each act may seem minor, but together they stack into an undeniable signal. You are clarity in action. The loop cannot override an identity that is reinforced by lived evidence. Once the body experiences a state consistently, the mind adjusts its story to match. Identity is not declared once. It is rehearsed through choices until it becomes the default broadcast. This is the beginning of embodiment, not claiming a label, but stacking choices until the label becomes unnecessary. Every identity is supported or sabotaged by its environment. You can stack empowering choices, but if your surroundings continually pull you back into the old state, the loop regains strength. This is why environment design is a critical part of embodiment. You are not only shifting who you are on the inside, you are shaping the stage that reflects it on the. Begin with physical space. A cluttered room sends a signal of confusion. A clean, intentional space broadcasts clarity. Small changes, a clear desk, natural light, meaningful symbols become environmental cues that reinforce coherence. Your nervous system entrains to what it repeatedly sees. Next, consider social space. The people around you act as mirrors. Some reflect your higher state. Others reflect the loop. Embodiment requires discernment, who pulls you into contraction and who expands your coherence. You don't need to cut everyone off, but you do need to curate influence. Even brief, intentional contact with aligned people can amplify your signal more than hours spent in draining dynamics. Finally, audit informational space. Every headline, every scroll, every notification is input. Ask, does this feed the loop or the field by limiting noise and increasing signal? You design an environment that makes coherence easier than incoherence. Environment design is not about control, it is about support. The field is always shaping you, but you can choose what field you step into each day. When your environment reflects your chosen identity, embodiment ceases to be effort. It becomes obvious. Embodiment is strengthened not only by choices and environment, but also by noticing the field's feedback. These are the subtle confirmations, the quiet signals that your new state is being acknowledged by reality itself. Most people miss them because they are looking for dramatic evidence, but subtlety is the language of the field, and when you learn to track it, momentum, a subtle confirmation could be a shift in emotion. You feel lighter in a situation that once triggered heaviness. It could be synchronicity, a chance encounter, a phrase you overhear, or a symbol that mirrors your intention. It could be behavioral. You pause before reacting. You choose clarity over confusion. You smile where you once frowned. Each is small, but each is a sign that the new broadcast is being received. Tracking is not about obsession. It is about recognition. By noticing confirmations, you signal to your nervous system, this is real, and that recognition deepens coherence. The loop weakens not because it disappears overnight, but because you stop feeding it with attention. Instead, you feed the emerging timeline with awareness. Keep a simple log over 72 hours. Write down one subtle confirmation each day. By the end, you will see a pattern forming a thread of reality weaving itself differently. The shift becomes undeniable. Tracking doesn't create the change, it reveals it, and in that revelation, embodiment stabilizes. You are no longer waiting for proof, you are walking in it. Every state you embody does more than shape your private life. It radiates. The human nervous system is both a receiver and a transmitter. Your thoughts and emotions are not locked inside your skull. They generate measurable electromagnetic fields. The heart alone produces a magnetic field that extends several feet beyond the body, detectable with sensitive instruments. This means your coherence or your chaos is literally broadcast into the space around you. Science has long confirmed this in subtle ways. Studies on emotional contagion show that a single person's mood can alter the physiology of those nearby. Teams with one coherent member exhibit more resilience. Families with one calm anchor experience fewer escalations. On a larger scale, research has hinted that collective focus, such as during global meditations, correlates with measurable shifts in the. This broadcast is why embodiment matters beyond the self. When you stabilize coherence in your system, you send out a signal that others unconsciously register. It is like being a tuning fork. Your frequency invites entrainment. Someone tense near you may find themselves breathing easier without knowing why. Someone doubtful may feel a spark of possibility. Broadcast is not about preaching or convincing. It is about resonance. And here lies the collective key. The more individuals stabilize coherence, the more the shared field shifts. Change is not a heroic act by one, but a ripple effect from many. The observer loop may trap individuals, but collective resonance rewrites culture itself. Your embodiment is never just yours. It is a transmission that shapes the collective time. The idea of morphic resonance, proposed by biologist Rupert Sheldrake, suggests that patterns of behavior and form become easier to repeat once established in the collective field. In other words, when one individual discovers a new pathway, it subtly increases the probability that others will find it too. Consciousness is not isolated, it is networked through resonance. Imagine a flock of birds turning simultaneously in the sky. No single bird shouts instructions, yet the pattern emerges across the group. Or think of scientific breakthroughs that appear in different parts of the world at the same time, as if the discovery was in the air. This is morphic resonance. The field remembers, and once a pattern, when you embody coherence and break free of the observer loop, you are not just shifting your own timeline, you are seeding the field with a new possibility. Others who are attuned, even unconsciously, find it easier to slip out of repetition because the resonance has been established. Your liberation becomes a reference point in the collective memory. This is why personal awakening matters for collective evolution. Each act of coherence is like carving a trail through dense forest. The first step is hardest, but once the path exists, it becomes easier for others to follow. Over time, the trail becomes a road, then a highway. Morphic resonance means that no shift is wasted. Every individual breakthrough lightens the load. The observer loop thrives on isolation, convincing you that your struggle is uniquely yours. Morphic resonance reveals the opposite. Your freedom echoes outward, and every echo makes freedom more accessible for all. In this sense, your shift is not just personal, it is a gift to humanity's unfolding time. Imagine what happens when coherence is not just personal but shared. One person shifting may influence a family, 100 may shift a community, millions may shift the trajectory of civilization itself. This is collective awakening, the moment when enough individuals stabilize awareness beyond the observer, and the field tips into a new pattern. We already see glimpses of it. Global movements that rise seemingly overnight, waves of compassion after disasters, mass meditations measured to reduce violence, all hint at the same truth: consciousness scales. What you embody privately contributes to a public resonance. Awakening is not the isolated act of a mystic in a cave. It is the ripple of ordinary people choosing coherence over chaos, awareness over loops. The power of collective awakening lies in morphic tipping points. A single drop may not fill the vessel, but the drop that comes after thousands can overflow it. At some critical mass, the field reorganizes, and what once seemed impossible becomes obvious. Practices that were fringe become mainstream. States of awareness, once rare, become accessible to many. The culture, and here is the profound hope: every choice matters. You may think your coherence in a small room is insignificant, but in the collective field, no signal is wasted. Each act of awareness adds weight to the scale. Each moment outside the observer loop strengthens humanity's chance to step in. Collective awakening is not waiting in the distant future. It is seated in every individual who dares to see beyond the loop. When enough seeds sprout, the garden changes, and in that moment, the observer effect ceases to be a cage for humanity. It becomes a mirror of our shared liberation. You did not land on this path by chance. Every word you have read, every realization that stirred within you, has been a mirror of your own readiness. From the beginning, you saw the cycle: belief feeding attention, attention amplifying emotion, emotion reinforcing belief. You recognized how the observer effect, left unconscious, could trap you into replaying the same timeline again and again. Step by step, you reclaimed what had been hidden. You learned that attention is measurement, that state has primacy over thought, that coherence dissolves the loop's grip. You saw how identity can move beyond the mask of the observer and root itself in the infinite field. And with each shift, now the picture is no longer partial, it is whole. You are not the one endlessly measuring. You are the awareness in which all measurement occurs. The observer role is a character, but you are the stage itself. From this vantage, life is no longer a cage of repetition, but a canvas of possibility. The shift is not distant, it has already begun within you. And as coherence stabilizes, your liberation radiates outward, broadcasting into the collective field. Now comes the moment of anchoring. After walking through the loop, coherence, identity shift, and collective awakening, the invitation is clear. Declare it. A declaration is not a wish or an affirmation. It is recognition. It is drawing a line across the sand and stepping fully into the field of freedom. Speak it silently or aloud. The observer effect no longer controls me. I am awareness itself. I collapse timelines through state, not through fear. I broadcast coherence into the field. My shift is irreversible. These words are not to convince the world. They are to remind your nervous system of what it already knows. Each time you declare, you embed the state deeper into your biology, and the loop may whisper, trying to replay its script. But the declaration answers louder. Freedom has already arrived. The shift is not pending, it is present. With each choice, each breath, each act aligned to awareness, the declaration becomes lived reality. You are not waiting for proof. You are walking as proof. And as you carry this declaration forward, remember that your embodiment is never only yours. Every step outside the loop becomes a trail for another to follow. Every act of coherence tips the collective field toward awakening. Declare it, embody it, and broadcast it. The loop has ended. Awareness has begun.